When most people think of land burning, their minds turn to wildfires. However, as we will discuss, some fires are controlled and caused intentionally. This presentation will allow you to understand the positive and negative effects of prescribed burning, as well as for you to understand if prescribed burning is something practical for you to implement into your practices. As a student studying rangeland management, prescribed burning is one of the big issues I will be dealing with throughout my career. Prescribed burning can be an important tool to help utilize and get the most out of your land. In this presentation, we will discuss the process, benefits, and consequences of prescribed burning. First, I think it is important to understand the process of prescribed burning and what it actually is. Prescribed burning is a planned fire used to meet management objectives. These management objectives could be a number of things, from wanting to control invasive species to maybe just wanting to get better vegetation out of your land. A prescription is a set of conditions that considers the safety of the public and fire staff, weather, and probability of meeting the burn objectives. That is the National Park Service definition of a prescription for the fire. For a prescribed burn to occur, the following conditions must be met. The wind needs to be about 5 to 15 miles per hour. Obviously, if it's too windy, you'll risk the fire spreading, which is the last thing you want to happen. Cloud cover. The more clouds you have, the less fire that you're going to be. So you want it to be a clear day and not a cloudy day. You want the relative humidity to be anywhere from 30 to 70%. You want the temperature to be about 40 to 80 degrees. And the fuel, you want about 1,500 pounds per acre. And what that means by fuel is simply what you are burning. So that's like the vegetation, the trees, whatever is being burned is considering the fuel. So like, let's say you have less fuel and you're wanting to burn that year, you might plan for that and have less of a stocking rate of cattle on your land. So that way you have more vegetation to burn and have a more complete prescribed burn. Every area that is burned needs to have a written plan that includes the goal of the burn. Again, it's just what you're trying to accomplish from that burn, like getting rid of invasive species, etc. Description of the burn area. So that's just a general description of the area. Probably what kind of vegetation you have on the land, what kind of hills you have, what the land is used for, things like that. You also want a fire break location, and the fire break needs to be 10 times the height of the vegetation. So if you're burning some shorter grass prairie, you're probably not going to need a very high fire break, where if you were burning some bigger trees. Burn crew and equipment. So knowing who you're going to have helping you, what kind of equipment, you're probably going to need some four-wheelers or some rangers with some sprayers on the back with some fire to easily put out the fire. Weather conditions, what the expected weather conditions are for the day. It takes a lot of planning, as there's only so many days in a year that meet the requirements to be able to burn. Hazard and precaution areas. An ignition plan. There are three basic types of ignition for a fire are drip torch, fire stick, and a simple fuse. And then you also would want just a general map of the area that you're burning. As you can see here, this is a picture of this looks like a fire department doing a prescribed burn. And you can see there's many of them spread out through the area. and they're just letting it burn and following it as it goes and keeping it under control. The benefits of prescribed burning. Prescribed burning is used as a tool to control invasive species. By invasive species, that means any species which is taking over the land, which is not one of the major factors of production for that land. Invasive species could be anything from invasive woody species such as cedar trees, which are becoming a rapid problem. They've always been a problem, but they are forever spreading towards the west, when in the past it's just been a problem here more towards the east, especially here in Kansas. And this is something that I think as they spread that prescribed burning can be a tool to help control those. And also invasive species, invasive weeds, it can help, and then just other invasive species that may be on the land. In a study done by Abrams to find the effects of prescribed fire on woody vegetation in northeast Kansas, this study was done out here north of Manhattan on the Konza Prairie. He found that when the trees were burned as saplings, they were completely wiped out. So when we get these trees burned when they're saplings, we don't have much of a problem with them if we're burning annually. Whereas, if you have bigger trees, obviously, it's going to take a lot more to take those out. In a study done by Augustine on the vegetation responses to prescribed burning on the short grass steppe, this was done in Colorado, he found that prescribed burns in late winter for objectives unrelated to livestock production can still have a neutral or positive impact for livestock. So through this study, Augustine did some prescribed burns on some land unrelated for livestock production. The burns had nothing to do with wanting to graze more cattle out there. But as you can tell, his results came that even though they weren't directly looking to burn for the impact of livestock, that it did not decrease the impact for livestock production. It either stayed the same or had a positive impact. As you can tell in this picture, there's a lot of woody vegetation around the area. This being an ideal area that you may want to prescribe burn just to get more out of the vegetation, and that way you can graze more livestock out of it and just overall get more out of your land. Obviously, several things are going to go into that depending on the area and the climate evolved around this field. There's also a study done on the economic assessment of prescribed burning, and a study done by Bernardo on the economic assessment of prescribed burning. He found that when starting to burn, in 6 out of the 10 years, cash input did increase. He also found that the longer that you have burning in your system as a practice, the more profitable years that you're going to have. Obviously, with anything in agriculture, you're going to have your up years and your down years. Obviously, the weather is going to play a big part of that with drought and things like that. K-State's own professor, Dr. Clinton Owensby, did a half a century of research that found that the rates of chemical change of prescribed burning in the Flint Hills was slow enough that burning annually would probably never result in an irreversible adverse effect on the Flint Hills Bluestem Range. So by burning here in the Flint Hills and on the Bluestem Range, that you're not going to have any negative results on the overall effect of the land itself, of the soil. Burning is never actually going to be able to irreversibly change that. It has such a low impact on the land itself. Prescribed burning can also be used to help endangered species recover in certain areas, create diverse habitat for plants and animals, or to reduce fuels and prevent a destructive fire. I think this is one of the most important because in some areas, if you do not prescribe burn and lower that vegetation down and the fuels that are in those fields, then a wildfire may occur, which could have a lot worse impacts as it could spread and endanger people with houses, endanger livestock as they can't get out through the fence and things like that. Prescribed burning does have several consequences. One of the main consequences of prescribed burning would be the effect on air quality. Obviously, you have that smoke in the air. That's a huge effect on air quality. In an article by UNRU, Kansas officials are asking farms to limit prescribed burning during this pandemic due to the lowering air quality. So as we all know, we are going through a pandemic right now through this time, and COVID-19, which COVID-19's main target is the lower respiratory system. And this makes air quality a concern where we have a disease that is directly impacting the lower respiratory system, where if we burn and lower the air quality, we have multiple things contributing to bad breathing, basically. And so they're just suggesting that we slow down on our burning. That way we can save lives in the long run. Another consequence of prescribed burning that scares a lot of people, especially in drier areas such as western Kansas, is it's a lot drier area and fire can spread a lot quicker. It's a lot windier in certain areas, and so the fire's spreading and not just staying in that one field are a big concern for some people. But with the right management and the right tools, it's something that can be made sure that you're not spreading the fires. As you can tell by this picture here, we have a large amount of smoke developing from burning. And as you can see, that would have a direct impact on air quality. However, we have came a long ways today in being able to figure out ways of wind direction and different wind speeds and such that we can burn and keep away some of that smoke from going to larger cities, and so that we can still burn, but we're not affecting the air quality for some of those people that we may if we just let it burn regularly and the smoke just go in the general direction. So there, we are making steps to be able to kind of control to the best of our ability the air quality that we can. Conclusion. In conclusion, prescribed burning is an important process that has both its rewards and consequences. For more information on prescribed burning or to contact someone to help with prescribed burning, contact your local NRCS office. When deciding if prescribed burning is something practical for your operation, it is important to evaluate the possible positive and negative effects that may occur.